These past couple of months, I have reviewed so many webinars from my clients, and they always come to me saying, I'm only converting at 2 to 3% live. This used to go really well. Now it's not anymore. So they come to me extremely frustrated because their webinars just aren't converting anymore or just aren't. Meanwhile, I've been working really hard on my high converting webinars in the past year, and our webinars have been growing from, earlier conversions of 4%, 5%, 66% to last month. I even did a 16.5% conversion on live attendees with a 75% attendance rate. And it's not because I'm a magical unicorn, it's because I've been following a structure, I've been tweaking, and I am avoiding a couple of really key mistakes. And sometimes when I get distracted, I mess up again, and then I know where I need to change it up again. So today I'm going to break down the 5 biggest mistakes that might be holding you back from converting at 10% or more on live attendees. And I really get it, because if you've ever poured your heart into a webinar and you've gone through so much effort to get people to sign up, and then you became really disappointed by the results, this episode is especially made for you. Let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome to Fail to Win, a show where we love to make mistakes and learn from them so you can turn your passion into profits and live life on your own terms. I'm Amy van der Putten from FastForwardAmy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode with simple strategies every Tuesday.
Okay, so you gotta know that whenever people come to me and they ask me to give pointers on their webinars, it's kind of like with sales conversations. So people come to me, my clients, and they say, I've done everything you teach and it's still not converting well. And I used to really believe that. I was like, oh shit, if they've applied everything I teach about webinars and it's not converting well, what do we do? But then I always think, let's have a look. This is kind of like when people go to the fitness trainer and they say, I'm eating so healthily and yet I'm not losing weight. And then it turns out that they're snacking a lot more than they used to, that they're not moving their body. So there are usually things that actually point to why the conversion is so low. And I want to show you the 5 most common ones I've been seeing in the past couple of months. Also, so that the next time a client comes to me, I can actually forward them this podcast episode. The best pieces of content are often the pieces of content your clients need on a daily basis. So the first mistake I see people making is that they are teaching way too much of the how. They're overwhelming their viewers. They're giving away all of the details instead of strongly positioning the what. So I used to do this, my clients do this too. They go way too deep in the step-by-step tactics. And as a result, everyone who's attending your webinar gets really overwhelmed, or they feel like they've already learned enough to go and do it themselves. And as a result, they have no reason to buy from you. So if you feel like you always do this and you have no clue how to stop doing this, my best tip for you is that you actually have to make... You're gonna laugh, but you actually have to make your webinar more dumb. And this was so hard for me. I worked really hard on this last summer. I was like, okay, I gotta make my webinars more dummy proof. And it means I really had to step away from the teaching standpoint, not necessarily become one of those, American webinar hosts who doesn't teach anything, because I hate that. And that's also the feedback I get from clients. But Amy, I want to be of value. I want to teach people. Yes, but you have to meet people where they're at. And you also have to kind of protect some of what you're teaching. So the solution is basically not that you teach bullshit, not saying that, but you teach the really big shifts. So the what and the why, for example, as a 3-part thing. So I'll often position a method or a framework or a formula, and I'll teach 3 shifts, max 5. I prefer 3. And then at the end, they'll see, the total shifts. And then you can position your program or your product as the place where they'll get the how of these steps in depth. So make sure you're not overwhelming people. Make sure you're not giving away too much of the how, because they'll either get overwhelmed or they'll think that they've learned enough to go and do it themselves. And what I do is I'll be really upfront, and I'll also say this. I'm like, today I'm going to walk you through what you need to do in order to change this. I'm not going to give you every single detail. If you're interested in that, I can teach you that in my program, but I want to make these shifts with you, blah-de-da. So I think also just like really transparently sharing that has helped me get a lot of sales, because people really know from the get-go what I'll be teaching them and what I'm not teaching them. And I'll also make them score themselves often on if they're actually applying these shifts or not, so that they can see what they're leaving on the table and that it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. The result of this is that at the end of the webinar, by the time you pitch, people are really motivated and they believe that this can work for them, and they're not overwhelmed. So they're actually excited to buy the next step from you. Which brings me to The second mistake, which is a weak offer positioning. So I think when you're hosting a webinar, first and foremost, people buy from strength. So when you are selling weekly or you're presenting your offer as a nice to have, and your bonuses are a bit vague and where you're not really giving any very clear urgency, people who watch your webinar and who are attending live will think, oh, I'll wait, or I don't really need this right now. And so what you need to do, and I think the best way to do this is to really believe it and have it ingrained in your own being, is you want to really frame the offer as an absolute must-have right now. You want to make it so that people feel like they really can't go on with this topic if they don't have your offer. That means we got to position your offer really strongly. You have to be in your authority position and do this with power. And you want to make it really compelling with urgency and bonuses. But you don't want to, lose yourself in all of the bonuses and all of the urgency. You got to make the offer the really strong thing that becomes irresistible and that people can't live without. And I believe the best way to do this is to become obsessed with your offer yourself. That is honestly one of my best tips always for sales is you gotta fall in love with your own offer. It's always the very best sales tactic ever. Which brings me to the third mistake, which also has to do with the pitch. The pitch often feels like an afterthought. Last week I was actually reviewing a client's webinar and she had a strong webinar and then she went into a Q&A and then she did her pitch after when people had left and when the vibe was gone. But you got to do the pitch on a bit of a high. So I would always do your Q&A a bit after the pitch and first do a really strong, really non-rushed pitch. So it can't be an afterthought. You can't transition too abruptly or be apologetic about it or not take enough time for it. Because when you just switch and glitch to your pitch, the attendees don't really understand what you're doing and they don't really get what the transformation is that they'll get with this. But what happens is a lot of people are afraid to pitch, but you just, be upfront about it. I'll always tell people in the beginning of my webinar, by the way, this webinar is sponsored by my program. At the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you the opportunity to purchase it. If you're interested, I'm going to share some information about it. And when you buy during the webinar today, I'll give you this as a present to thank you for your loyalty or whatever. So I'll really treat the pitch as 25 to 30% of my webinar. And I'll state that beforehand. And when I am pitching, or, the opposite gets done by clients who don't have high conversions, I will really confidently repeat the transformation. I'll stack the value of the product so that it becomes so irresistible. Now, I did not always do this, and sometimes I'll still mess up my webinar. A few weeks or months ago, I can't remember, my boyfriend was texting me during my webinar. Usually I'll turn off my iMessage and everything, but for some reason we were in a discussion during my webinar, which is terrible, right? Because I'm online live an hour to 2 hours. He didn't realize, he got upset about something, I got upset, and it completely fucked up my buzz. So we also had a conversation about that afterwards. I was like, when I'm hosting a webinar, I need to be in extreme high energy. We really can't have that happen. We actually don't often have arguments or whatever, but this was just a little glitch in our life and it happened during the webinar. And I was like, well, that just lost me 10 sales because I was not in a good energy. And when I'm not in my strong authority energy, it's going to get really, really difficult for me to pitch with confidence. So don't rush your pitch. Don't hide your offer. Be really confident and proud of it. And you're going to see that when you then focus on the transformation your offer offers, people are going to be much more mesmerized because people buy from power. They don't buy from weakness. Next. And this actually happens before your webinar, but it has a really big effect on your webinar. So often I'll see that people don't have a really good attendance rate. So we'll always have attendance rates. We'll benchmark and aim for at least 50%. When we don't hit 50% live attendance rate, we know we messed up somewhere. Maybe we didn't remind people enough or, something went wrong, or we didn't use the right time slots. But it's a problem because when only a small percentage of people show up live, you are losing leads and sales. And when your chat isn't as lively, you're also kind of diminishing the energy. And And this can actually kill your potential conversions. So a lot of people think smaller group, that's great. But for the energy, it might actually be better when you have a little bit of a bigger group. So when you don't warm up enough, when you don't remind people enough, or you don't hype up your webinar, if it's a live webinar beforehand. I'm actually talking about live webinars, by the way, because if you want to run evergreen webinars, I think you first have to get good at live webinars because you learn so much from them. But so when all of that happens, maybe you don't have enough people showing up to your webinar. We can't have that happen. So one of my best tips, and this is a tip ChatGPT won't give you, is offer multiple time slots. We tend to do webinars at least 4 times live, which is pretty crazy, and almost no one does this. But since we've been doing that, I have noticed an incredible attendance rate, upwards of 75%. And I believe it's because we actually always offer 4 different time slots on 4 different days. So we actually give people the option to register for a time slot that actually fits their calendar, instead of registering for something they actually kind of already know they're not going to attend and they're just going to hope for a replay. We don't offer a replay. We do 4 different time slots so that people can really register for a time slot that will actually enable them to show up live. So what can you do? You can send out reminders, warm-up emails. You can even send DMs if people have registered through DMs. You can also make stories that you're, getting ready for your webinar, about your slide deck, that you're sitting there and ready. Right before I'll go in my webinar, I'll always post a little story like, oh, see you in there. Because some people might not be in their email inbox, but they might see the story and they'll think, oh, yes, you're right. I need to go there. And something I haven't been doing, but I do want to do in the future is just go live for like 3 minutes to remind people that it's starting, because when you go live on Instagram, there's a pop-up that pops up, which kind of like alerts everyone who's just scrolling on Instagram. So that can really help. And one other thing we always do is we offer a show-up bonus for live attendees. So people know when they're there, they're actually going to get another gift. And then during the webinar, we'll offer a gift if they stay until the end, which really keeps the retention high as well. For me, these have become best practices. And so when I look at people's webinar transcripts or outlines or slide decks, I see that these best practices aren't applied enough. And I think it's often because we're so busy as entrepreneurs that we forget about the details. But what has really helped me actually, and what has helped me really grow in this in the last year, has been to really focus on my benchmarks. So my benchmark is, or my target is, I want to convert 10% of live attendees. My other benchmark is I want 50% of people to show up live. I'll always set a target on how many people I want to show up in total live. Then I'll calculate backwards from there, and then I'll know how many people I need to show up. And if I'm not hitting the amount of people that need to register, I just know I need to either make more content or try a different strategy or whatever. But it's just all about the targets. Set a target for how many people need to sign up, set a target for how many people need to show up, then attendance, and then the live conversions. And whenever I do my webinar 1, I never convert at 10%. After webinar 1, I'm already really happy if I got some sales. And then I'm like, okay, what did I learn today? And that brings me to the final talking point. And this is something I can only learn from doing it live. I wish I was that person who could prep really, really well, but I'm just the type of person I learn from doing. So during the first webinar, I'll often do that fairly quickly after my announcement. I'll do the first one, a couple of people are there, and then I'll learn about the objections that pop up. And then from that point onwards, in my next webinars, I'll take those objections and I'll already work through them throughout the webinar. So I'll handle objections during the webinar. And the problem for most people is that they avoid or they skim over objections like price, time, or will this work for me if? And so when you don't handle these objections, or you don't prevent them actually, your attendees will actually silently talk themselves out of buying, so that by the time you're pitching or at the end of your pitch, they've decided they won't buy. And then they won't buy from your follow-up emails either. So the solution is that you actually proactively address the top 3 to 4 objections during your content and pitch. So I'll use social proof throughout the shifts. I'll talk about things just like very casually, like, oh, by the way, yeah, people are afraid of investing in systems, but you'll lose a lot more money when you do this and that, or this is how much you can make back, or like, it doesn't matter. Just get really, really conscious about the objections people have, so that you actually can proactively take them away during your webinar. And then by the end of the webinar, it's going to get much easier to then convert people. And so I want to say one more thing about just like my magical trick that actually just like gets me so many sales during webinars. But before I summarize what we just talked about and, share my trick with you, I also want to say that what has been really helping me to get a lot of signups for my webinars has also been to just make sure that I'm creating a lot more content on my feed to get signups. So I used to be heavily reliant on Instagram stories. But about a year ago, I was like, you know what? I've kind of had it with Instagram stories. Like you make them, you spend so much time on them, and then 24 hours later, they're gone. I still enjoy creating. I enjoy creating stories of what I'm doing. Like right now, if you watch my stories, you'll probably see some Italy content or whatever. But I don't want my business to be dependent on something that disappears 24 hours later. And I started noticing when I looked at other people online that they were getting so many chat comments, like keywords that were commented under their posts, and that they were just getting so many leads in. I was like, holy shit, I could even use videos from my webinars to then promote my next webinar. The moment you install ManyChat and you know a little bit about content, it becomes really, really easy to make more content to attract more attendees to your webinars. So the big problem there is, it's not a problem, but a lot of my clients, they'll come to me and they're like, oh, they're using link in bio still. They're not even using ManyChat, which I think is such a shame. Or they're using the wrong keywords. Often I'll see clients use really, really long keywords. And I'm like, well, these make no sense. No one is going to want to comment a word that contains 20 letters. You got to make it really easy for people to sign up. I think someone who does this really well, for example, is Maria Wendt. She always has really short words that are incredibly powerful. Because when you are using ManyChat and you want people to sign up for your lead magnets, for your webinar, for your offer, you don't want people to sound weak online. Imagine you see something online and you're afraid other people will see you commenting on something, or the word is really long, or you think it will position you as someone who makes a lot of mistakes. You won't comment. So one of my best tips when you're using ManyChat keywords is that you use really strong keywords. So I've made a list of, a couple of do's and don'ts, 10 really simple proven keywords you can use, and then 10 bonus power words people love to comment. So if you want access to that, it's just a ready-made, really simple list. I'll give it to you for free, and then maybe you can use it to promote your next webinar, for example. All you gotta do is comment keywords anywhere on my profile, or just go to my Instagram, FastForwardAmy, and send me a message, keywords, or go to the link in the description of this episode, and I'll send over my list of 20 ManyChat keywords that always work really, really well, okay? Don't forget to do that because it's going to save you so much time and get you so much leads. Okay, so what did we go through? We walked through teaching too much of the how. You got to shift to the what. Make shifts, not in-depth explanations. Do a stronger offer positioning. People don't buy from weakness, they buy from power. Don't rush through your pitch. This is kind of like how I just talked about the ManyChat lead magnets. I took my time, right? And that was for something free. If you're pitching something that people actually have to pay for, make sure you take your time. Then number 4 was poor attendance. Make sure your attendance rate is, try to aim for 50% and see what you can tweak in order to get there. This is not possible for everyone, but I would say try to get there. 25% is too low, especially for a live webinar. And then last but not least, make sure you are proactively handling objections during your webinar, even well before your pitch. You're going to see your conversions increase. And last but not least, if I can give you one tip, is that the moment one person buys, more people will buy. So make sure you're always just trying to get that one person to buy and also say it. So for example, I'll have my sales notifications on during a webinar. So I'll get a notification in like a beep beep on my phone, and then people can hear it. And I'll take out a post-it. I'm like, hey, Michelle, you get a heart, and here's a post-it with your name. Who wants the next post-it? It's orange. And it sounds really stupid, but using that type of social proof live in a webinar, one, it makes it so that people definitely understand this is live. They also want to get on the wall of fame. One person often gives permission to the next person to buy. So obviously you can't manipulate the fact that the first person buys, but it does help. So yeah, make sure when the first person buys that at least they're actually also saying it out loud so you can celebrate it and welcome new people. These are some of my tips. I hope you got a lot out of this, and I hope you get really high converting webinars soon. Let me know if you liked the episode, and maybe if you've never done it, leave me a review. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, reviews mean the world. I always forget to ask for this, but it's only 2 minutes of your time and a lifetime of difference for me because it allows me to reach many more people with this free podcast. And if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you hit follow so that you actually get a notification in when a new episode drops every single Tuesday. Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, before you go, I have something really exciting to share because in the last year, I have been lucky enough to have clients fly all over the world to work with me. I've been selling out my mastermind programs, and people have just been literally messaging me, hey, how can I work with you? And some would say that's luck, but it's actually not luck. Over a year ago, I decided to build myself a system that would allow me to be offline, plan content ahead, and just get leads and sales in every single day. And for the first time ever, I am opening this up to teach other people how they can build their own marketing machine. So this is called my authority system. And in 90 days, I can teach you how you can become the go-to expert in your sector who everyone wants to book. We're talking getting premium clients in who want to pay you in full. We're talking premium clients who pay your worth, who don't negotiate your prices. And you are finally going to be the one who gets invited to the podcasts and the events and all of that. Now, this program is only available by invitation and spots are extremely limited. And the first people who sign up will also get a discount. So if you are tired of being the best kept secret in your industry and you want to become the authority, message me invite on Instagram and I'll send you an invite to the closed list, or just simply go to the link in the description of this episode. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on this one.